Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a beautiful queen sat by her window, sewing on a snowy winter day. As she worked, she pricked her finger with her needle, and 3 drops of blood fell on the snow. The sight of the red blood on the white snow was so lovely that she wished for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Soon after, the queen gave birth to a baby girl who had skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. She named her Snow White. Sadly, the queen died shortly after giving birth, and the king remarried a beautiful, but vain and wicked woman who was obsessed with her own beauty. The new queen had a magical mirror to which she would often ask, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always replied, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." This pleased the queen greatly.As Snow White grew up. She became more and more beautiful, and eventually, her beauty surpassed that of the queen. One day, when the queen asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White is even fairer than you." Filled with jealousy and rage, the queen ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. She demanded that he bring back Snow White's heart as proof. The huntsman led Snow White deep into the forest, but he could not bring himself to harm her. Instead, he told her to run away and never return. He brought back a heart from a wild animal to deceive the queen. Alone and frightened, Snow White wandered through the forest until she found a small cottage. Inside, she discovered 7 tiny beds, 7 tiny chairs, and 7 tiny plates. Exhausted, she fell asleep on one of the beds. When the owners of the cottage, 7 dwarfs who worked in the nearby mines, returned home, they found Snow White asleep. She awoke and told them her story. The kind-hearted dwarfs offered her shelter and protection, and Snow White gratefully accepted. Meanwhile, the queen asked her mirror again, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White, beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarfs, is still 1,000 times fairer than you." Enraged, the queen disguised herself as an old peddler woman and set out to find Snow White. She offered Snow White a beautiful, poisoned apple. As soon as Snow White took a bite, she fell into a deep, death-like sleep. The dwarfs returned to find Snow White seemingly dead. Heartbroken, they placed her in a glass coffin. Unable to bury her because of her beauty, time passed, and one day, a prince who had heard of Snow White's beauty came to see her. Struck by her loveliness, he leaned down and kissed her. The kiss broke the spell, and Snow White awoke. Overjoyed, the prince and Snow White declared their love for each other. Snow White returned to the prince's kingdom, where they were married and lived happily ever after. The wicked queen, upon learning of Snow White's revival and marriage, was consumed by her own envy and rage, and she was never seen again, and so, Snow White and the 7 dwarfs lived happily ever after, in peace and joy. And that is the story of Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, the timeless tale of beauty, jealousy, and true love.